Through the Table faithful, welcome to another edition of the Through the Table podcast and the start of a new series called On the Table, where we shift our focus away from wrestling and talk about other topics that are of interest to us and are a part of our identity. And in the first episode of this series, we take a look at the world of video games, our own personal life experience with video games. Why are they so important to the friendships and relationships in our lives? The crossover appeal to wrestling, amongst other video game related topics, including our personal top 5 games of all time. Remember to stay up to date with the latest wrestling news and what the 3T crew is up to. Follow us on Instagram at Through the Table and Twitter at 3TPod. That's the number 3, the letter TPOD. And if you like what you hear wherever you get your podcasts fixed, be it Apple, Google Play, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, or PodBean, subscribe so you don't miss out on any episodes, leave us a comment on what you think about the show, and hit that Meltzer 5-star button. And if you'd like to support the podcast and show that you're down with the 3T crew, buy one of our t-shirts on ProWrestlingTees.com/3T podcast. Now let's get into the world of video games. Welcome back to the Through the Table podcast. I am your friendly neighborhood Rice Krispie, as always, joined by the good brother of all good brothers, Gerard.
Yo.
How you doing, man?
Chilling, man. Feeling good. Got my first haircut post quarantine. Feeling good, looking good. You know the vibes.
Yeah.
What's up with you, man?
Yeah, things are starting to open back up again, so hopefully it won't be too long before we're all back together again and there's a new sense of normal in the world. So we've had this idea for quite some time. I mean, understandably, this is a wrestling podcast, but there are other interests that we have besides wrestling. There's other things and other common interests that bring our group of friends together. And with that being said, we actually have one of our friends that are going to be joining us for this episode. It's been a while since he's been on. Very long time, actually. But he's back to talk video games with us. So without further ado, welcome back, Bryan, to the 3T podcast.
Yeah. What's up, brother? How's everything?
Oh, surviving just like everybody else. Waiting for all this stuff to blow over and almost spiking my controller into the ground playing Call of Duty Warzone.
We've had some experiences with that. Bryan also pitched this idea to us too, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I
kind of had the idea for this one.
I mean, it's like, I think one of the other things we're passionate about besides wrestling would be video games. I mean, and like throughout this whole quarantine, it's like the way we've been bonding has been through video, like right or wrong, you know?
Yeah, I mean, video games are just one of those things that that I think helps bring people together, especially at a time like this where you can't go out and physically see people or go out and do things. So it's just, especially for us, for our friend group, it's a common interest of all of ours, and we get together, we talk, we stay connected through this thing called video games and playing online with each other. And also I think that there's just this natural crossover appeal between wrestling fans and, of course, video game fans, which we'll talk about a little deeper later on in the episode. So we got together to do this episode, and it's going to be the start of a brand new series within the show, like I said in the beginning, On the Table, where we talk about things outside of wrestling that interest us, because there's more to us than just wrestling. And also, I mean, it's still sort of wrestling related because there's obviously wrestling video game titles. But just to get us to know different aspects of us and get us to know us on a different scale than just being wrestling fans and doing review shows. And before we dive any further, just a quick shout out to our good friend GC, who we did an episode a couple of months back, late 2019, talking about music. So this isn't the first off-wrestling topic episode that we're doing. That was kind of like the inspiration, and I guess if this is episode 1 of On the Table, consider the music episode 0. It was a pretty fun episode, so if you haven't heard it, go back and check it out. It was a two-parter because we just had a very in-depth discussion about music, how it relates to our life, how it's important to us, etc., etc. Really good episode between us and our good friend GC.
Let's consider that the pilot. That was like the pilot episode, the tie-in episode to this new series that we're working on.
Right, so we talked music back then. In this episode, we're talking video games. So let's get into it. Let's start with the present day. I mentioned that we've been playing a lot of Call of Duty Warzone, Modern Warfare a lot. But besides that, what have you guys been into? What can you recommend someone to get into outside of Call of Duty? Gerard, start us off. What are your recommendations? What have you been into outside of playing Call of Duty with the boys?
Well, right now on I'm playing on console other than Call of Duty. I don't have tons of time, obviously, but NHL 20 via EA Access. I think EA Access is something pretty dope. It's a dope service. You get all these games for what, $9.99 or $30 for the year, something like that.
Right.
So you get all the sports titles. So I'm playing NHL 20. Obviously COD on mobile. On mobile, I'm playing on my tablet. Digimon Re-Arise. It's a kind of a spin-off of Digimon Lynx and of the other Digimon games that are on Switch and PS4 and all that. I think it's a pretty cool little mobile title. I'm not really a big mobile gamer, but it's passing my time on the tablet when I'm waiting for everyone to get on Warzone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm playing right now. What about you, Brian? What are you playing other than COD? Other than COD?
Other than COD, well, I've been like, there's been games like G got me into like Persona 5.
We'll be talking about that really soon.
Persona 5, Overwatch. It's just a mixture of like everything. I don't stick to like one. They'll be like whatever. Like I'm in the mood for like say like wow. If no one's on, I just play something else. Once like that 8 o'clock happy hour.
It was a happy hour.
I start look forward to like that. You know. Usually it depends. On Wednesdays, usually I guess all of us are start watching AEW. So it's like we'll get on after, you know, and discuss the show or whatever.
Overwatch, some Persona 5, you rocking?
Yeah, I just got on the days of play. I got Persona 5 and I got I'm a big Dragon Ball guy, so I got Dragon Ball Fighters, and I thought that game was dope. So yeah.
Got a nice little mix over there going. He got a shooter, JRPG, a fighting game. Pretty good vibes. Chris, what about you, man? What are you messing with right now?
Before I get into what else I'm playing, very quickly, for any of our listeners that might be interested, we have a regiment on Call of Duty Modern Warfare called Pudo Boys, because we gotta rep that Pudorezu, that Suzuki-gun, and we have a happy hour at 8 p.m. Eastern time, so happy hour, you get double XP. We're on the PlayStation side of things, but the cool thing about this Call of Duty title is that it enables crossplay. So if you're an Xbox person or even a PC person, if you want to play with us anytime, just DM us your screen names or your Activision IDs and we'll link it up and add you to the regiment. But when I'm not getting fed up with Call of Duty Warzone, I recently purchased the Death Stranding Collector's Edition, the one that comes with the life-size light-up BB pod.
Hey, nothing like having a fetus by your bedside, man.
That you get pissed off on the game, you could on COD, you could kick it like Snitsky when he kicked the baby.
Just kick the damn fetus. Hey, we're not preaching child violence here. Just letting you know, this is Brian's independent contractor. He's not under contract via the 3T crew. He's an independent contractor. That's just the disclaimer.
But yeah, I've kind of been sucked into the world of Death Stranding. Very, very massive game. I lost count of how many hours I've actually put into the game, and I don't even think I'm halfway through the main story.
The last time we talked, you said you were like 45 hours in, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm also trying to stretch it out, enjoy it, kind of consume it slowly, not rush to finish the main story of it, just in taking my time and enjoying the world of Death Stranding. It's a very massive world, a huge game, has a star-studded cast. The main story is broken down almost episodically, so I'm just trying to take my time with it, enjoy everything of it, explore the world, see how many secrets and Easter eggs I could find, and see how many side missions I could do before I just go full out and just play and complete the entire story.
Who's in that game, by the way, for people who might not be familiar with that title? Give them a little rundown of some of the cast.
So this game, of course, stars Norman Reedus as the main playable character. You've got Mads Mikkelsen from Hannibal fame, Guillermo del Toro, Lea Seydoux, Lindsay Wagner, Margaret Qualley, and you've got also like a bunch of cameo appearances by Hideo Kojima himself, Conan O'Brien, Jeff Keighley of the Video Game Awards, and probably a bunch that I've yet to discover yet. So, as well as Troy Baker playing one of the main villains in this game. So, again, just really, really big cast overall.
The graphics are insane too.
It's a phenomenal.
It's a beautiful game from what I've seen in videos like reviews and all that. And what both of you guys have told me, because both of you guys, Bryan, you played a little bit of that too, right?
Yeah. I was like, yo, the graphics just look insane, bro. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, it's a very, very massive open world type game that really pushed the boundaries of what console gaming can do and what the PS4 can do. And if it's not that, recently I bought a game from E-Line Media called Beyond Blue. It's one of the first major projects for a really dear good friend of mine, Elaine, who actually is responsible for the 3T logo. Which, funny story, we met because she sold me a PS3. So again, just goes to show you the importance that video games kind of has in the very important friendships and relationships in my life. So it's with E-Line Media, like I said. They're probably best known for the game Never Alone, which is an educational game where you explore and learn about the Native American culture of Alaska. So in Beyond Blue, it's about ocean life and kind of marine biology, learning about different species of marine life in general, and then just kind of also kind of getting into like our relationship and with that other world that's out there, and our relationship with our environment and taking care of it, and what we can learn from the communities that live within the ocean. So it's a very beautifully put together game, extremely educational, great for kids, but adults as well. I think it'd be a really good game, like if you had kids to play along with them. Whether or not I think everybody, at the very least, likes sharks or something like that, right? So everybody likes Shark Week. So even if you don't think you're that much into marine life or that world, it will definitely pique your interest and make you want to dig a little bit more. And it's just very cool to learn and experience some of that stuff. So a really well put together game. I've digged into it a little bit over the last few days. It's really fun, really immersive. So congrats again to Elaine on all the hard work. I know you've done a lot and sacrificed a lot to get to the point where you are now in your video game design career. And congratulations to you and the studio of E-Line Media for a very well, beautifully put together game. I've been having a lot of fun digging into it. It's great.
Sometimes you need those type of games too, bro.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You just don't want to be shooting guns your entire video game experience.
Absolutely. Right, and the environment is just so easy to get lost into, and the soundtrack for the game that goes along with it just kind of puts you in this place. There's just times where I've been playing it and not even really worrying about the objective in front of me, just getting lost in the ocean and no pun intended, but just soaking it all in and enjoying that environment that they created. And you can get it on PlayStation. I believe it's on the Xbox as well, and also on Steam for you PC players. But that's what we're playing currently. I want to go back to the past and talk about where we got our start. So at what point in your life, what's your earliest memories of getting exposed to the world of video games, and what got you hooked to video games? Bryan, start us off.
It was like I want to say like my mom and my dad around Christmas getting me the PS1 with like Crash Bandicoot and I think one of the wrestling games. I can't remember if it was
I'm gonna stop you right there. It's just the PlayStation. PS1 was the white one that came out after PS2, which was weird. But if we're talking the original OG gray box, it's just PlayStation.
PS1.
Uncultured swine.
That I remember my parents getting me that, and me being soaked and Crash Bandicoot, and then I had a wrestling game to come with it because I was like, since I was small, I was crazy about wrestling. So yeah, and then the first wrestling game me playing was probably WWF Attitude, I believe. Playing
That might have been the one that was on PlayStation.
Yep, that one. It had
Also-
Austin on the cover, so that's how.
Everything had Austin on the cover back then, man. That dude was that dude, man.
Yeah, that, and I remember getting that one, and like, you guys are gonna laugh at this, and I remember, you guys remember when everyone would say, "Oh, Stone Cold and Goldberg were related"?
Up, here we go.
Because
We've been 10 minutes in, and we already got a Goldberg reference from Bryan.
No.
We told you before we went on the air, no talking about Goldberg.
So my dumbass thinking,
Oh.
I got the game with Goldberg, but I didn't know who Stone Cold was at the time, because
Man.
Wait. I first had started out as a WCW fan. I'm gonna be honest. Later on, I discovered WWE.
Oh,
So then, yeah, and my
hate to
dad
see
had
it.
bought me a WWF game, and I'm over here thinking, oh wait, where's Goldberg? But then I'm like, hey, Stone Cold they look the same, all right. And then, yeah.
wow.
Bro, I was small. I didn't know better.
All both
Sure.
look alike. Unbelievable.
Oh man. Well,
Oh,
those
yeah,
were fun
3G
games.
do not represent the beliefs of Bryan.
But the good thing about those games, real quick, it's like the first few like wrestling games. Do you remember? They were like fun because they were so arcadey.
Yeah, and I think all the same developer made all of them back then. I think it was Jax or
THQ.
THQ made all of them. Yeah,
And-
so
and-
like
and-
it was
and,
kind of all the same.
The ones who made Mortal Kombat, Acclaim, I think, Acclaim Studios. You remember?
Yeah, AK man, I think.
Yeah, they
Something like that.
But it was crazy because you remember you would be able to hit so many finishers, and like it would be fun,
Yeah, there wasn't so much of a focus on the realism. It was very arcade-like, just a straight-up brawling type of game, and they were so much fun back then.
My earliest memory of video games was playing Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which was Sonic and Tails, with my dad. That's kind of, Sega Genesis was my introduction to gaming. It wasn't my own console, but playing those original titles was great. My own personal first video game was Pokemon Yellow on the Game Boy Color.
Nice.
That was my first video game. That was my own video game. And to this day, I think still really holds up. What about you, Chris? What about what was your first experience with video games?
So the funny thing was trying to go back and remember my earliest memory. I would start off somewhere and be fixated on that point and just be like, wait a minute. No, there was definitely something before that. And then, so it had to have been this. No, but wait a minute. There was something before that as well. And so thinking about my earliest memories of video games, it kind of like unlocked like a whole bunch of like these forgotten memories of my childhood. And it really made me realize that like video games have always been there. And they're a critical part of like a lot of the important relationships in my life. And for me, the start of it all is the OG gray PlayStation. Huge Crash Bandicoot fan. Crash Bandicoot 3, aka Crash Bandicoot Warped. I played that endlessly as a kid. And then also around that time there was Jet Moto 2, which was a pretty popular motorcycle hovercraft type racing game back then. MLB, before there was ever MLB the Show, it would just go by like whatever year it was. So, MLB 98, MLB 99, whatever it might be. And I was just like remembering like, man, like there was like so many countless hours that I put into those games playing with my dad. So I would say that I got my start, the start of video games because of my dad. I'm pretty sure he bought the PlayStation really for him, other than me. And I played Little League baseball when I was younger, and he was very involved in that. So it was just like kind of natural. He would buy the MLB titles every year, and we played each other so much all the time. That game, Jet Moto, there was like so many. Gran Turismo. My dad's like loves like racing simulators. So that was like a big part of it was my dad getting me into video games and that first system and all the hours that we put into playing against each other. And I wouldn't say that he's that big of a gamer now. My dad's just always been someone who's always just kind of had like this intrigue in modern technology and all that stuff that comes along with it. So of course, in the '90s when console games had their big boom, that was like the big tech craze back then. If it wasn't the PlayStation or the Nintendo 64, then it was the handhelds like the Game Boy Pocket, which I'm pretty sure he had. My uncle did as well, so I have a lot of early memories of like watching my uncle play Pokemon Red and Blue, and of course, as any '90s kids, you get sucked into Pokemon as well, and along with not just the card game but the actual video games that came out. So that's like that. Those are like my early memories, and I think even back then, my dad might have had even some PC games, like a lot of racing stuff like that. So it just kind of it was weird, like trying to think of like, oh, like what's the first game that I played, or when did I start getting into video games, or who got me into video games. Like it just made me relive like a whole bunch of stuff from my childhood that wasn't even related to video games. Just like, oh, like playing Little League Baseball and remembering like the apartment that I grew up in. Like it was just like all this crazy stuff that started coming back and flooding back to the front of my mind, just thinking about my early memories of video games. So again, it's just one of those things where it makes me realize that video games have kind of always been there as a core piece of my life, and it's part of like so many key memories of my early childhood.
I've never met someone who never even played the Pokemon game or heard of a Pokemon game. You know what I mean?
Right.
Bro, I would take the link cable to school.
Right, because back then that was the social aspect of gaming. You had a link cable, you could hook up with somebody and face each other, trade Pokemon, and those were kind of the limits until there was technological advancements, and you could play people on the DS like 8 people at a time, which I'll talk a little bit more. So those are the early memories, and now that we've kind of established a starting point for all of ourselves in terms of like when we got our start playing in video games, what brought you guys back? Why stick with the hobby? What is it about video games now that just keep you intrigued and wanting you to carry on this part of your life that you have?
I always saw it as like fun, like like especially like I guess like currently right now with all this like we can't go outside and any of that, so it's like I would bond with my friends through the games, like even if like say we're not even all of us aren't playing the same game, like at least we're like like just kicking back talking about whatever, it's always a fun time. But then it all obviously always gets competitive too, but I don't know, something about it. Like I grew up with it. Like I've had like I think every PlayStation from like the first one all the way to now, and then it's like that's something like besides I guess action figures. Like when I was younger, that I used to really like video games has always been like part of my life. Like you said, like if you look back, it's always like you even like I've met like people through video games, like friends that I've had. It's crazy, like So it's always been there. Like I've never like never like had no console. I've always like had one, and I've always like bonded with my friends with it. So I guess that's why. Like nowadays, I'll play video games, but it's like to bond with like you guys, in a way. That's technically.
Everyone's getting older. It's harder to hang out sometimes now. We all got our own lives.
Yeah.
Our own social lives or work-related lives. So sometimes it's hard to get together, but you get a couple games in the zone, a couple gulag trips. Something.
And then it's like this thing. It's kind of like with like comparing it to wrestling. To me, it's like kind of like when I watch wrestling, it's like it takes your mind off like reality for a second, and it's like you're like consumed in, if that's the correct term,
So like an
what's going
escape
on.
is what you mean. Like it's escape from whatever's going on in life.
Exactly. Like
Okay.
you don't know how many times like I've looked forward to like a pay-per-view or something like that, and it's like it's an escape for those couple of hours. Or when you're attending an event, it's an escape from like anything that's going on. You know, like Chris could relate when we went to like Wrestle Kingdom, for example. Like he was so excited as much as I was, and it's like it was in that moment it was an escape from anything that was going on. You know, like any problem you have or anything, and it's like the same thing with video games and like those couple of hours that you're playing, or what's it called? It's like it's the escape, like you were saying. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it, to me, man, is obviously the camaraderie between us good brothers all playing together, but the immersement of video games, especially the kind of games that I like to play. I like diving in deep to games, and it's you just tune everything out. You get whatever amount of time you play, you're in that world. Whether you're playing Call of Duty, Overwatch, or you're playing something more serious like a Death Stranding. You're immersed in that world. You're envisioning yourself in that world to a degree.
Yep.
And for me, I'm a creative person and I like to write and all these other things. A lot of it's also this creative juices flowing. Like you're seeing other creatives present their work to you in a way that, they're trying to reach out to you. So when you're seeing that, it also motivates you to want to be creative and work on a project or write this or do something similar. It gets the creative juices flowing for me. So that's another big part of it. I love seeing fellow creatives put stuff out there, and seeing that finished product is also a big motivating factor to me.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that because, I feel like, especially when it comes to video games, a lot of us probably don't really understand or even can appreciate all the hard work that goes into creating a video game. I mean, on the hardware / technical side of things, you're taking an empty digital space and creating your own world, creating objects, environments, figures, people, etc. So that's one side of it. And then after that, you're creating a story to be told, an adventure, something. So there's that also, that other creative avenue of it is actually writing a game. And as much as games can be used to kind of escape our reality, it could also teach us a lot about our reality, right? You can bring awareness and educate people on issues through video games. So it is this very creative process and it's very complex. And I feel like, it's very easy to judge a game and, oh, this is broken and this doesn't work and when are they going to update this, when are they going to patch that? But I don't really think people really understand like all the hard work that really goes into creating something like that.
Would you guys think it's a lot like wrestling in that sense, is that we all look at it kind of skin deep at times? Like you're just seeing the action in the ring and you're not really looking at a lot of the stuff around the ring?
That's for sure, because like
Yeah.
like sometimes I guess we could get critical in a way, like with like even like say like with games, like you would be like, oh, how come they didn't like do this or do that? And
Yeah.
same thing with
Understandably.
wrestling. Sometimes like like I guess like you could be the judge of it. You've seen it a lot with me, G. Like sometimes like I'll message you or message Chris. Oh, I didn't like the result of this match. Blah blah blah. And it's like it's part of it. Like I guess in a certain way, like wrestling, like sometimes not everything's for you. Sometimes it's for the other person. You get me?
Yeah. So that's why I think it's that when you were articulating it further like that, Chris, it kind of made me think about it in that kind of sense. I kind of felt like there's a similar parallel. I know we're going to talk more about the connection between wrestling and games later on in the episode, but it just felt right just to mention it in that moment.
Right, and even if you simplify it to, at its core, a lot of video games, be it an adventure game or whatever it might be, you're following a journey, right? You play as this main character, and there could be fighting some force of evil or, whatever it might be. It could be an individual, could be a group, and you can apply that idea and that definition to a lot of video games, and it's essentially the definition of professional wrestling. Got a face on his journey to trying to become a champion. heel stands in the way. So you stick with the journey that that character or that wrestler goes through to make it to the top, to overcome all the odds. So there's obviously a lot of commonality between the two. So let's segue into the future of gaming, right? So the PlayStation 5 just recently got announced the other day. Initial thoughts? Is it a day one purchase? What are your initial thoughts about the PlayStation 5?
Let's go with Bryan here because he's the main PlayStation junkie. He said he's had every console, right? So
Yeah.
Bryan, what are your thoughts on the new PS5? Does
Well-
it look like a router? Does it look like Hiroshi Tanahashi's ring gear? What's up?
You know, I'm gonna be excited, bro. Like, I have the freaking buttons tattooed on me. Like, it's like regardless, it's like,
Yeah.
regardless, I'm gonna
For
buy it.
everybody listening, this man has the 4 buttons tattooed on him. That's how dedicated he is to Sony.
Yeah, like, hey, G, don't act like a fanboy. This man had bought like a Sony stock right after.
Hey.
He texted me, he's like, yo, bro, I bought a Sony stock. I'm like, damn, I thought I was a fanboy. I mean, I guess as a group, we were all excited in a way, you know?
Oh, I think we all marked out. Let's all
Yeah.
keep it a buck. Chris, before Bryan
yeah.
gets into it, you marked out, right? You
Hell
popped.
yeah.
Yeah. Popped.
I mean,
Okay.
Chris was, we kind of spoiled like some of it, so Chris was cursing out a storm.
Yeah, because, so just for some context, these freaking jackasses, I tell them when the PlayStation announcement was going on, it's like 4 o'clock in the evening. I'm still stuck at work. I'm like, yo, like, shut up, don't say anything. I'm going to watch it when I get home. And these dudes are like, oh, this is coming out, that's coming out, posting pictures in the freaking group chat.
Between me and GC went like.
Yeah. I mean, I was sharing stuff on Facebook. I was being respectful, Chris. Then the guys were talking about him like, screw it. Yay, Spider-Man.
Venom and Carnage. Woo!
It's all good, though, because the Rice Krispie never forgets.
Next, oh man, you better wake up early for that wrestle team, G.
Some of the
I
titles that
thought it
they
was
showed.
cool that they used white. You know, like it's like that's a first. Like that was crazy, and then the controller looks like a spaceship, bro. Like it looks, wow, so futuristic. Like I'm excited. What can I tell you? You know, like you said, I think you had said something about like, oh, this next generation is diving into like PC territory in a way, and it's like, yeah, I'm looking at it like you can just tell by like I know like saying, you know, a game is always gonna look good on like trailer and stuff to like you play it, but like
NBA 2K.
yeah, like that had like the sweat and everything, but whatever. What's it called? But yeah, it's exciting, man. It's driving to the next generation, and to just see how it holds up. I think it'll do well. So
Out of the conference, what was your win? Your big win on the conference?
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Spider-Man
I
Miles Morales, by the way. Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Spider-Man
is
Miles
amazing.
Morales. Like I was sold the minute I saw like the Spider-Man gameplay, and I heard like Kid Cudi. I'm like, whoa.
And they
Yeah.
gave my man a shape up too. They lined him up good for that. Yeah.
Yep. So that you already know that's gonna like I'm gonna go on like a hot
He
take.
was. They had him looking dusty in the first Spider-Man game, bro.
Yo, I'm gonna go on a hot take. That's gonna be like at least nominated for Game of the Year of like.
Man, that's
whenever.
no hot take.
That's not
Come
a hot
on.
take, that's
No.
facts, bro.
That's a fact, bro. Come on.
Well,
man.
I told that I'm like I'm on these Reddit forums, you know, and I told that, you know how they get over there. They were like, oh, hot take, blah blah, and I'm like, oh, you'll see.
You'll see.
So, but I'm mostly excited for everything, you know, like even the like Little Big Planet, Sackboy, that's gonna be fun.
Sack boy. So okay, before we jump into me and Chris's thoughts, since we're on the topic of that, so you already said that your game that look out of so far is Spider-Man Miles Morales. What's your price point for the console?
Hey, like Chris said, anyone who thinks this is gonna be cheap is on drugs, and he's right. I think it's gonna be like it still be like I say 500.
500. Okay.
No, wait. But I'm saying 500 for the digital, and then
Oh.
the regular one 6.
It's okay.
What do you? And then I want to see what you guys think of that too. So
Oh boy, man. I'm looking forward. First of all, the design is fresh, bro. It looks better than that refrigerator. It looks like a keg on the Xbox side of things. I think
Yeah.
Bryan could agree with that, right? It looks like a keg.
Xbox.
They're gonna come for my head on that, but whatever,
Yeah.
right? I think the design is very futuristic. It kind of reminds me like of Mass Effect kind
I
of.
mean, you know, for like the listeners too, you know, because there's gonna be people who obviously have Xbox, and I'm not bashing Xbox because we've all, I guess.
Oh no, I'm
like,
bashing Xbox. I'm bashing it. I want the smoke. I'm bashing.
Bro, but I'll give them this. They have a nice controller. Like Xbox has a nice controller. Like you've had Xbox 360. Like
Yeah.
it's like the controller's nice.
I just
but,
didn't like the whole battery aspect where you have to buy
Yeah.
batteries for that. I think that's kind of lazy.
you know, I'm a place. Like I said, I'm a PlayStation fanboy, so I'm always gonna go with Sony. But yeah, back to what you were saying, bro.
Yeah, so the design kind of reminds me of like Mass Effect a little bit. Like it's very futuristic, as you mentioned. I love the controller. I like the PS4. I think custom skins and like collector's editions, you're gonna look fire on that.
Bro, they make like a Spider-Man. Like you know how they had like the Spider-Man on PS4. Imagine a PS5. Oh my god.
That's what I'm saying. Now for the game aspect, which game to me stole the show at the conference? Ratchet and Clank.
Ooh yeah.
That's one of my favorite franchises. I love the franchise. I think that a lot of people slept on it because obviously Spider-Man Miles Morales. By the way, Insomniac is winning Studio of the Year already with those two games. So, like you might as well just hand them the award. It's like when New Japan announced like Ibushi versus Okada, you know it's gonna be probably match of the year. Or when you know it was Shingo versus Ospreay, you knew what it was already. But Insomniac put out the two best titles out of all the next gen stuff that I've seen so far. Now for the price point, you said what, 500 and 600?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm gonna go.
Two versions.
Digital is gonna be 500. I'm gonna go 500 on that. I'm gonna go. Oh man, I'm gonna go 699 for the regular console.
700? Ooh.
I'm going. I gotta go up a little bit higher. I can't just copy yours. You know, we gotta have a little bit of a gap.
But by the way, bro, that are you referring that because of that article that came out from PlayAsia or whatever that they were?
I'm referencing it because I saw the specs of the console on Best Buy.
Yeah.
I saw the specs. I kind of feel like it's a lot there, and I don't think 700 is too expensive. People be spending 1,000, 1,500 on PC kits when they build their own PC. So to spend 700 on a console is not that much of a reach. And if you don't like it, get your money up. Let's keep it on. Let's get your money up.
Yeah.
We all got Trump checks. We all got Trump checks out here, man. Y'all could have put that 700 aside, but you wanted to spend it on some adult oriented stuff. That's on you. All right, Chris. What about you? Put me on your PS5 thoughts.
You know, there's a lot that I'm looking forward to, especially that Miles Morales title. Huge fan of the first Spider-Man game that came out a couple of years ago. They did a really phenomenal job with that one. So, pretty excited with that title and some of the other titles that they have lined up.
By the way, Chris, now that I don't want to interrupt you because you're going on a good point, but man, I don't know if it's just me because I'm a massive fan of the series too, but really disappointed in Rockstar and GTA 5.
Oh man, I didn't want to bring it up.
I have a thought on that. So here's my thing.
Here we go.
I've heard G's thought on that.
So my thing is, for all you GTA fans, if you want a new game, let the old game die. Why you guys are still playing that game and it's still pretty popular? So
people,
Bryan, that's what I told you. It prints money, right?
Yeah, you did say you're like it's online. People are just on it. You know, like it hasn't. And how old is this game? Like
that game was on Xbox 360 because I had it on 360.
Yep.
Again, if you want something new, let the old one die. I mean, and I'm not saying that to defend the Grand Theft Auto series because I'm not even a fan of the Grand Theft Auto series. I don't care about Grand Theft Auto, but you have a game that has had a very long shelf life because for whatever reason it's still popular. A lot of people are still playing that game. So it's like they created something, that's not a bad thing. Like they created something that has a long shelf life, has longevity, and is still enjoyable. What do you think was going to happen? And by the way, all you Grand Theft Auto fans are a bunch of marks anyway. You're going to buy the game regardless of the fact that you're upset. So here you go, Rockstar. Here's my $60 yet again.
Don't be a mark and buy it because it says GTA on it. If it pisses you off that much, just go buy something else. There's, like Chris mentioned, Horizon. Bryan mentioned Miles Morales. I mentioned Ratchet and Clank. Javier, because I told him we were doing this episode, mentioned the Dark Souls game that's coming out. I forgot the name of the thing. I forgot the Demon Souls, actually. There's plenty of stuff that you could buy. I also like the Tokyo game. That came
that Tokyo game looks fire, yeah.
the Tokyo. I think it's Deadlight Tokyo or something like that.
Yeah, with the
Mhm.
spirit. I'm
The
excited
Stray.
about that one.
Yo,
Stray.
Hitman too. Hitman is, you never know.
Hitman
That,
3.
that
That's what I'm
whole-
saying. Like, that's like 8 or 9 titles that they showed. If you don't want to buy the remaster GTA, find something else, you Mark.
Yeah, but going back to my initial thoughts and reaction to it, there's obviously a lot of titles that I'm very, like we've mentioned, very, very interested and very much looking forward to. I think it's pretty ambitious for them and a pretty big, bold move for them to be releasing a version of the console that has no traditional disc drive and is a digital only console. I also think that the design itself is a pretty ambitious design. I know a lot of people are memeing it and kind of have like, contradicting thoughts about the design itself. Me personally, I think it looks great standing up, vertical, maybe not so much horizontal. So yeah, it's pretty interesting on the design itself.
It's a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger than the PS4, by the way. They did the specs of all the consoles. It's about how about before? Like it's about probably like 18, 20 inches tall. The PS5.
Yeah, and then price point, I'm kind of with you there, Gerard. I think 5 and 7. I think if you give the digital version a little bit more storage capacity than the traditional one, but with the disk drive, it allows for backwards compatibility, right? So you kind of have a little more of you have a little more options having a disk drive, and then of course there's just people that like to collect the games and build their actual physical library. So yeah, I think I'm kind of like on a 5 and 7. I'm not surprised that they're releasing 2. That's actually a prediction that I had. I thought that they were going to very much do like the way Apple does now, iPhone 11 and then the 11 Pro. So I'm not surprised that they're going to have 2 different versions of the console at launch, but it's not going to be, it's going to be up there in price. I mean, if you look at the technical aspects of it, they're throwing a solid state drive, which we're getting for the first time ever. Anybody that knows anything about computers and hard drives and stuff like that, solid state drives move a lot faster. They're able to process a lot of information a lot faster because there's no moving parts like a traditional hard drive. So it's really going to push the boundaries of what they can do from a technological standpoint with creating these new games. So it's not going to be a $300-$400 device at all. I don't think it's going to be that at all. So we're just going to have to wait and see.
Before we jump into the next portion of this, I wanted to share via Best Buy had their email link came out to notify people. On that one, it said that I think the disk drive one has 835 gigabytes of data on release. So it's not a full terabyte, but that's what it has. I don't know if that'll change between now and release date, which is they're saying holiday 2020. But it is what it is. That's what it's looking like at the moment.
But imagine a game like Modern Warfare, bro. That updates every.
That's another thing. That's a whole other discussion about games increasing in capacity, while these consoles kind of stay flat at a terabyte or so.
Yeah, but from my understanding with the PS5, it's rumored to have an additional slot internally. So straight out of the factory, right out of the box, it's going to be pretty customizable in terms of what you can do with the storage capacity of the device itself. With the PS4, you would have to open up your PS4 and replace the hard drive, but it only supported certain types, blah blah blah, or you would need to have an external USB hard drive. With this one, from my understanding, it might only have like 835 gigabytes, but you'd be able to pop it open and throw in an additional one without having to replace anything and transfer files and stuff like that. So I'm excited for the next generation of Sony and gaming overall. But let's dive back into our history with video games. I want to hear your gentlemen's top 5 lists of all time. Top 5 video games ever for you personally.
Ever.
I'm gonna run
Top
down my
five.
5, bro, and then I'm gonna discuss each one a little bit after that. I don't want to do it like one by one. I'm gonna run it. By the way, Bryan just pulled out a notepad as we have this on video, so he's ready to go. All right, my top 5 games in no particular order because I didn't have the balls to go. You know what? F it. I'm gonna go down the list like it's 5. Number 1, Persona 5.
Damn.
Number 2, Overwatch. Right, so we got a little thing going. Number 3, Walking Dead, Telltale Walking Dead Season 1.
Good one.
Yeah. 4, Mass Effect 2. So that's 4. Number 5 was a tough one because I wanted to get a handheld in there. We can't just leave all the
You gotta give
go
credit
with
for the handheld.
yeah. You gotta put a handheld in there. I had Pokemon Gold. I didn't have Yellow, but I had Pokemon Gold. Now let me run down my list right here. So I had Persona 5, my first JRPG, Japanese RPG. Very immersive experience because you play as you essentially, even though the character doesn't look like you. You make the decisions. You could talk to whichever girls you want. You work a job. You go to school. The gameplay is phenomenal. It went from arguably one of the more under talked about games on there because of what it is. It's a JRPG and it's more of a cult following to one of the biggest titles on PlayStation overall. Look at the PlayStation conference. They showed Joker, the main character of Persona 5 on there. I think it's one of the best JRPGs ever. I've played the rest of the series also. They almost made this list if we were doing a 10 to 15 maybe, but Persona 5 is probably my favorite JRPG. Number 2, Overwatch is my favorite shooter. I have over 400 hours in the game. 296 hours as Winston, my favorite character in the game. I think that was one of the best shooters ever, and it showed a lot of strategy and team building aspects in the game, which I really like. It wasn't just the typical run with your head off shooting like in some Call of Duty games where you could kind of just carry a game by yourself. You needed the team around you to really make it effective. Number 3, Telltale Walking Dead Season 1. Oh, man. That game effed me up, bro. That game effed my day up. Especially the last, 2 episodes. I know Chris knows what I'm talking. I don't know if Ryan's played it, but Chris knows what I'm talking about. That game, honestly, man, made me cry. I'll be honest with you.
It's so tough, man.
I got one more. Massive. Oh, I got 2 more.
You said Mass Effect?
Yeah, Mass Effect 2. Another game where you kind of control the narrative. As you notice, there's a theme with my games about controlling the narrative in the games. I liked having to control the character, the whole choices between good and evil, the morality aspects of the game. The morality system is crazy. The suicide mission in that Mass Effect 2 might be one of the best single missions I've done in a video game. It felt like the stakes were high. If you pick the wrong thing, you literally see a character that you've been talking to for the entire game get off. Boom, done. That's because you sent them to the wrong door. He gets his head taken off. It pretty, for a game to have actual consequences for your actions really matters, that you can't just go and press restart and redo it. That's why that's there. Number 5, I have Pokemon Gold, like I mentioned.
Nice.
You needed a Pokemon title in there, especially me. I'm big on Pokemon. Yeah. Yellow was great. Pokemon Gold was better. Pokemon Gold was better because you can do both the Johto region and the Kanto region, so it made up for 16 badges. And it had a new Pokemon onto it, and it was great. The storyline was great. My favorite Pokemon, Quagsire, comes out of there. So that's my top 5 video games of all time. My personal top 5. And if you don't like that, I got 2 words for you.
Yeah, I was looking at
Ready, Bryan? Ready? You ready?
I had written down 3. So I just
3? You need 2 more. Come on.
No. Yeah. So
if you don't pick 3, I'm picking the last 2.
All right. I got, and this is no random order because I basically have. I'm not gonna put them in order like you did, whatever. I'm just gonna go by 5. And I'll say why. I put a COD in here. I put COD Modern Warfare 2 because
that was if it was top 10. That was one of my top 10.
That
Yeah.
was like, and they remastered this. And Chris knows they remastered this like recently, and it's like we were all excited for it, weren't we? You know, like that story, that campaign was awesome, and
To
the
hell, sure.
multiplayer back in the day was awesome. So I got that in there. Um, SmackDown versus Raw, the first one that had like, if you remember, the cover had Vince McMahon and he had a blue eye and a red eye. I don't remember, G, but I think that whole series was awesome. But that first one was really great. That was the first time that a wrestling game had like stamina like in it.
Yeah.
Because before
That was
you
a
would do like the finishers and stuff, so now they would actually get tired and stuff. So, and the storyline for that is awesome. And I used to spend time a lot on this on general manager mode. Remember that? Where you would create.
When we get into the wrestling talk, we'll be talking about GM mode, but they definitely got to bring that back.
That was awesome. But like, you would go head to head. That was quick. I liked it GTA San Andreas a lot because 90s, so like it was pretty cool. Put a Pokemon in there, Pokemon Yellow.
Oh, see, so you're putting the Pokemon Yellow, okay.
Cause that's like the OG, like right there. You had blue and red, but yellow to me.
Yellow was better than blue and red because it completed what was on top of it. So that's 3, right?
Yeah. No,
Which are
that's
the two?
4.
4? Okay, 4.
And then I put in a Mario Kart.
Oh, okay.
Double dash with the tool on the GameCube.
Man, you don't want that, bro. You don't want that. You don't want that. You don't want that. You don't want that action.
Mario Kart's always fun, bro.
All right, now it's time for my top 5 video games of all time. So I'm going to start off with what I think is one of the best series on the PlayStation 2, God of War, the first God of War for PlayStation 2. I'm a big history buff. I love old cultures and old societies, so a game that involves a look into Greek mythology and stuff like that. Absolutely love it. I think Kratos is one of the more influential characters in video game history, and of course now with the reboot of the series that takes place with Norse mythology, I think it's pretty interesting. But God of War, the first one for PS2, it's up there for one of my favorites. Up next, everybody that knows me personally knows that I'm a huge Batman mark, so I have to go with what I think is the best out of the Arkham series, that being Arkham City. It captured the idea of open world gaming very well. One of the best stories ever, a lot of replayability, and yes, I say that with a bias because I love Batman, but even if so, like if you don't give this video game the credit that it's due, then I got 2 words for you. Free flow combat. That game revolutionized free flow combat. We're seeing it in other games now, especially like the last Spider-Man game that came out. So that game is very important for revitalizing and changing up combat systems. Up next, I got a handheld title in there. Got to get my handheld love in there. I got Mario Kart DS, because this game was very critical in the growth of the social aspect of video games, especially on the handheld systems. Like I mentioned before the DS, you needed to bring a link cable, and you were limited to just playing with another person, right? But at least with Mario Kart DS and other DS titles, someone could host a room of, I believe, 8 people. And you didn't even need to have the game. All you needed was one person to have the game, and they could game share it with 7 other people. So a lot of friendships were tested on Mario Kart, but that's why it's up there for one of my favorite games of all time. Up next, I'm a big story person. I love single player games. I love campaigns. I love immersive stories, things that are very emotional, things that make you think a lot and ponder a lot about different things. So this game is a pretty special game because this was when, back in the Xbox 360 days, I got very disinterested in gaming for a while. Almost gave it up completely. Gerard knows about this because he gave me this game to borrow. He's like, hey, you need to play this game, it'll bring you back. and that is Alan Wake, one of the best, most mind screwy, interesting stories that I've ever played. I wish that they would make a sequel or something, or hell, make it into a movie or a little series. I think it'd be pretty interesting to see Alan Wake come to life in that respect. And then finally, to round it off, I gotta give it up to Call of Duty for the first and original Modern Warfare. It revolutionized the AAA big title and revolutionized first person shooters. For me, it was me dipping my toes into that new generation of gaming. Call of Duty Modern Warfare is the reason why I got an Xbox 360, was because a bunch of my friends were playing Call of Duty, and it's just one of those games that have stood the test of time. So that is my top 5 personal video games ever. So those are our personal list and the games that mean the most to us. I mean, I don't think it's meant in disrespect to any of the other major and influential titles and series that are out there. There's so many that are important to video game history. Mario being a very key influential figure in video games. Sonic. The Metal Gear series, which, it created a genre. Stealth games didn't exist until Metal Gear. And then, of course, you have horror staple like Resident Evil, which there's also going to be what seems to be maybe the final chapter of the main series. There's a new title coming out for the PlayStation 5 called Resident Evil Village. So that is that's a series that has stood the test of time. The Assassin's Creed series, The Legend of Zelda, which I know a lot of people are into. There's just so many, and the list goes on and on and on. And even for me, being big Crash Bandicoot fan, I couldn't put that on this list because to me, it means so much to me that it just transcends any type of top 5 or top 10, top whatever list. It's just it stands out on its own. But those are the games that mean the most to us, and those are our top 5 lists. So let's wrap this up, gentlemen. I have one final question for you. What is your favorite wrestling title of all time? Ever? What's the best one?
Yeah, we're making it hard on 3 teams, Bryan.
Smackdown Here Comes the Pain, I think is for me my favorite. Just because of it had the whole, and maybe the one before, no, actually the 2 before that had that mode on it. But I remember just fighting backstage and stuff, because before you weren't able to do that. So the whole backstage arena and stuff was awesome. And then the storyline to that was great with you create your superstar and all that. So yeah, I spent a lot of time on Here Comes the Pain.
TNA Impact. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, man. It led to a real life character.
I think it was WWE 12.
Jacob
Was
Cass.
that was the
Yes,
Jacob Cass storyline?
That's my favorite one too.
Yeah.
Wait, WWE 12 had Orton, right? Not
Orton on Punk was the one after that. This was the one Randy Orton had.
That one was fire.
Yeah, so this one had the Sheamus storyline, Triple H, Jacob Cass, which I thought was pretty dope. I loved it. I thought the story mode was fantastic. This also had the renaissance of the WCW coming back in the storyline. I thought this was one of the best WWE games they've made in a long time. This was also the first in the WWE series, following the last one was SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. So this was the first one in that new WWE game style format. I loved it. I thought that was this is probably one of the best wrestling games ever to me. And I know a lot of people aren't going to really jump on it, but this had a complete story mode, which is something a lot of people crave now, right?
Absolutely, I'm with you on that one. It's probably my favorite wrestling title that I've ever played, and then of course, a lot of people are, because it's not, Here Comes the Pain or whatever other old school, No Mercy, whatever like that. Of course, people get stuck in their little nostalgia trips, but this was one of the best all around, at least in the modern era of wrestling games. This is one of the best all around games. The Jacob Cass storyline and the revitalization of WCW was phenomenal. It was done perfectly. And yeah, it's like you look at the titles now, this is what everyone wants. Is it an actual really good put together story? The 2K series, absolute flop. Absolute flop. And it's sad because you look at in the NBA 2K and how well they do with that. It's a shame. Like they've been garbage or buggy or whatever it might be. I can't even remember the last WWE title I bought because I just refused to pour money into absolute garbage. And yeah, this might have been like their last greatest one.
Can I add honorable mention? Fire Pro Wrestling.
That game is yeah.
Fire Pro was pretty. I mean, it's obviously a sleeper title because
Graphic-wise,
it's a PC port, and it's if you want more like typical like an 8-bit arcade style game with a big long career mode, that's something I think that's pretty cool. And if you like New Japan, it's a New Japan game technically.
Can I add something? What if EA Sports made a wrestling game?
It would suck. Would suck. I mean, think about this. If you want to run down the EA titles, FIFA and NHL are pretty good. Most years, NHL's kind of. Me and Chris play it almost every year. It's kind of hit or miss year by year. Madden is garbage.
Presentation-wise, you'll do well though. Presentation-wise, I know they will hit it out.
It'll look great. I mean, it'll look great, but the gameplay, like they don't have a story mode for any of their games. Really, it's more small scale. People want a deep franchise mode in WWE plus a deep story mode.
Yeah, it's,
I mean, you're not going to get that.
UFC game, like
yeah,
said,
so that the UFC game would be the most closable comparison, and the UFC game is clunky as hell sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't
To me,
EA's
it's-
focus won't be a wrestling game. That'll be the fourth franchise that they really caring about because FIFA and Madden are the cash cows for EA.
right. And
Why would they care about a WWE?
It's a
Oh no, but there was
WWE game,
no,
so-
Brian. It's a great point because it was rumored. That's
Well,
been talked
and I'm saying
about for
for the-
like.
I just thought of that because the fact of like now like wrestling's being mentioned on like ESPN and like Sports Center. And
Oh no,
all
it's
that.
a smart
So
point.
it's
It's a
like-
very good point to bring up because I think it's something that's worth talking about, especially since they stopped developing 2K 2021 or whatever the hell that was supposed to be, because this last one sucks. Think about it. This last game sucked so bad that they canceled development of the next year. That's never happened even in sports games where it's like, oh, NHL 17 was so shitty or NHL 18 was so shitty that we're just gonna skip it and go to 20. So and there's big changes in the WWE franchises. A change of studio might help, but I think a lot of it has to be with WWE actually giving a shit and actually making this game worth it. Because the last game, they didn't have any of the wrestlers do voice acting.
Really?
In 20, because I played in a career mode here and there, it was limited.
Wow.
And I'm like, it was generic as hell. So like, if you're not willing to put the talent on in there, like they did, like if we mentioned the one with Jacob Cass or Here Comes the Pain, they actually had the wrestlers do a lot of work voice acting for this. That's to have all their lines and make, if you're not gonna make it feel like a wrestling game, I don't think EA can do that. I don't know if 2K can do that right now. It's gonna be very interesting to see where this comes. I got another question. Do you think AEW is going to have a wrestling game coming out? And do you think it'll be more like Fire Pro style? Because I know people want an old school No Mercy style game. Or do you think it'd be more modernistic like how the 2K and the Smackdown versus Raw kind of style games?
I think more simplistic. I think on the side of that, Fire Pro Wrestling, very arcade-like. Do they really have the budget? Are they big enough to develop a very, very expensive console game that a lot of people might not buy anyway? So I think, and of course it's new for them. I mean, they're new, so this is a new. It would be a new venture for them. So I think dip your toes in the water, so to speak. Come out with a title that's. That a lot of people can pick up, even those that don't really know much about AEW. And hey, you get them through the game, you get them to tune in, you grow the popularity of the brand that way, and then maybe later down the line, you go very ambitious and give us something that's close to what 2K has been doing with WWE. So yeah, I think there will be a game. For sure, I think that goes without saying, being that so many of them are fans of games, including Cody Rhodes. But I don't think it'll be a super big, ambitious, next-gen project. But that is going to do it for this episode of Through the Table, the very first episode of On the Table. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you enjoyed us talking something a little bit different than wrestling, and get a little bit more of insight on who we are and what we're about. Like I said before, the more the merrier. We welcome anybody to join the party, so DM us with your usernames if you want to throw it down in the gulag, in Call of Duty, or in anything else that we might be playing. We hope you try out some of the suggestions we made in what we're currently playing and enjoyed this little trip down memory lane through our childhoods. Special thank you to Bryan for joining us again on Through the Table and talking video games with us. Definitely try and have him on more episodes in the near future. And if you liked us talking about something different, you like the change of topic and talking about something other than wrestling, let us know what you thought about the show. You know that we talk to almost everybody and answer all of our DMs, and give us some future topics that you would like to see discussed on the On the Table series. And with that being said, we'll sign off and we will see you next time.